The one who doesn't want me. Ash Cruz had never been lucky. He was born into a life that never gave him room to breathe. One where dreams were luxuries and survival was the only plan. Between long shifts as a freelance physical therapist and caring for a grandmother whose health declined by the day, Ash was barely keeping his head above water. The debt collectors came weekly. The fridge rattled with more sound than food. And his last employer, a man too bitter and petty to let go, made sure every clinic in the city blacklisted Ash after he stood up for a patient's rights. He didn't care for fame, for trends, or for pretty faces on screens. He didn't even own a television. The only thing Ash wanted was peace. And maybe, just maybe, a future where he didn't have to look over his shoulder. So when a mysterious agency called offering triple the usual pay for a private treatment session, Ash didn't ask too many questions. He needed the money. His grandmother needed her medication. That was enough. What he didn't expect was to walk into a luxury hotel suite and meet Xander Wolfe, the undefeated MMA champion, media magnate, and heartbreaker known around the world. Xander was everything Ash disliked in people. Cocky, flirtatious, always surrounded by noise. The man oozed power, wealth, and danger. And yet, when Ash set down his bag and began his work, he didn't even blink. To him, Xander was just another client with sore muscles. And that, it turned out, made Ash irresistible. Because Xander Wolfe was used to being wanted, desired, feared. He lived in a world where no one ever said no. But Ash barely looked him in the eye. He focused on the job, gave cold professional advice, and left without even taking a photo. And just like that, Ashander was hooked. A week later, Ashander called again, then again, until one night, just before the biggest match of his year, he offered Ash $5,000 to come treat him privately. Ash arrived, confused by the urgency. But when Ashander stood at the door, shirtless, sweat running down his chest, he didn't ask for massage therapy. He asked for a cure. "I'm cursed," Xander said. "Every fight, I fall apart unless I get this out of my system. I need you, Ash." Ash's jaw clenched. It was clear what Xander wanted, and it wasn't physical therapy. He refused. But $5,000? That was 2 months of rent. That was medicine. That was safety. And in the quiet hours before dawn, with shame pressing into his ribs and guilt swallowing his pride, Ash returned. That night, he learned what Xander really was. A beast in the ring, but even rougher in bed. Not cruel, but raw, wild, territorial. It wasn't lovemaking. It wasn't romance. It was survival. For both of them. Ash tried to disappear after that. He blocked the number, avoided the agency, told himself it was a mistake he'd never repeat. But Xander wasn't finished. The calls came again. The offers doubled, then tripled. And when Ash didn't respond, gifts appeared at his door. Flowers, envelopes of cash, a full week of groceries. One day, he opened his door to find Xander himself waiting. Hoodie pulled low, eyes like a storm. "You're different," he said. "And I can't stop thinking about you." Ash slammed the door in his face. But obsession doesn't die easily. What followed was a slow, excruciating chase. Xander showed up at matches injured, just to call for Ash. He hired him, professionally, just to see him again. And each time Ash said no. Each time he reminded Xander that he was just a man trying to survive. Xander only wanted him more. Ash's resistance wasn't a game. He meant it. He didn't want to be owned. Didn't want to be another trophy. But Xander didn't want to own him. He wanted to be seen. Underneath the fame and the titles, Xander was tired. He was broken in places no one else could reach. He grew up with fists as language, with people leaving, with love always coming with a price. Ash didn't ask anything of him. That terrified him and thrilled him. One night, after a brutal loss in the ring, Xander disappeared from the spotlight. Ash was called, begged to come. He didn't know what pushed him to go. Pity? Curiosity? The same ache that started that night long ago. But what he found wasn't the Ash Xander the world knew. It was a man curled on a hotel floor, shaking, bleeding from a reopened wound on his back. "I don't know how to stop," Anzid whispered. "I don't know how to be normal. I only know how to break things." Ash knelt beside him, and for the first time, touched him gently. "You're not cursed," he said. "You're just scared." After that, things changed. Ash still kept his boundaries, but they blurred slowly. He stopped running. Xander stopped chasing so hard. They began to meet in the middle. There were still fights, ugly ones. There was jealousy, when another fighter tried to hire Ash and Xander nearly tore apart a locker room. There were confessions, Ash's trauma, Ash's fear of depending on anyone, the pain of poverty, the shame of survival. But there was healing too. Ash's grandmother moved to a proper care facility, her bills covered by Ash's anonymous donation, but only after Ash agreed to work as his official therapist, on his own terms. And one day, just before a championship match, Asher didn't call for sex, didn't beg for help. He just asked Ash to watch. No terse, no ritual, just presence. Asher won that fight. Not for the crowd, not for the cameras, but because Ash was in the room. And for the first time, Asher didn't need to be fixed. He just needed to be loved. Even after the fight was over, Ash stayed. Not because he had to, not because he was paid, but because something in Xander's eyes, quiet, for once, without hunger or fire, had called to a place in Ash he hadn't touched in years. They didn't speak that night. Ash patched the bruises, cleaned the wounds, iced the swelling. Xander watched him like a man afraid to blink. The weeks that followed were quiet, at least on the outside. The media buzzed about Xander's comeback, the shocking win after a losing streak, but he ignored the noise, didn't go to interviews, didn't post on socials. He trained, ate, slept, and always, Ash was near. He didn't move in, he wouldn't. But somehow, he was always around, dropping by with food, with new raps, with silent scoldings when Xander didn't stretch properly. They moved like two orbiting stars, just close enough to feel each other's heat, but too far to collide. And that drove Xander mad. He wanted more, not just Ash's touch, not just his presence. He wanted the entire man, his thoughts, his fears, his past, his heart. But Ash had walls built from years of hardship, and they weren't coming down easily. One night, as they sat in silence over instant ramen, Xander finally asked, "Why do you keep coming back?" Ash didn't look up. "Because you need someone who won't ask for anything," Xander whispered. And then, with a voice that cracked, just a little, he added, "I want you to ask for something. Anything. Just once." Ash looked at him, finally meeting his gaze. "I don't want to need you." But needing each other was becoming unavoidable. Xander started sleeping better with Ash nearby. No nightmares, no jinxes, no rituals. Ash found himself relaxing, slowly. He even laughed once. Just once. When Xander tried to cook and set the toaster on fire. Still, Ash wouldn't give in. Not fully. Not yet. Then came the call. A massive sponsorship deal. International fights. Big money. Bigger media. Xander was expected to go on tour for 3 months. The offer was a dream. A global comeback. But the first thing Xander said wasn't yes. It was, "Can Ash come with me?" Ash froze when he heard. He thought it was a joke. He wasn't a trophy. He wasn't a pet to be taken around like luggage. He confronted Xander that night, furious, guarded, ready to walk. "I'm not yours," he said. You can't just take me." But Xander looked at him with such raw, desperate honesty and said, "I know. That's why I'm asking." Ash didn't give an answer that night, but a week later, he boarded a flight with him. Only this time, Ash didn't pack only his tools. He brought clothes, books, his camera. It wasn't work anymore. It was something more, something terrifying. The world tour was a test for both of them. Crowds screamed, fans begged, people flirted openly. Ashander barely looked at them. He watched Ash instead. Ash, who stayed in the background, who refused to walk red carpets, who spent nights curled up on the hotel couch, reading, not caring what room he was in, as long as he wasn't needed in the spotlight. But the longer Xander kept his distance, the more he started to pull away. He didn't know how to be close without breaking things. He didn't know how to love gently. And when the pressure of fights, fame, and hiding his feelings finally broke him, he snapped. One night, after a win in Tokyo, Xander came to Ash's room, drunk, angry. "You're the only thing I can't win," he growled. Ash stood still, calm as always. "You don't win people," he said. "You don't fight for love like it's a match." Xander's voice cracked. "Then how do I get you to stay?" Ash didn't speak right away. Then, softly, "Stop chasing me like you're afraid I'll run. I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. But I'll only stay if you let me breathe." Xander dropped to his knees that night. He cried into Ash's chest, trembling, more fragile than he'd ever been. And Ash held him, not as a therapist, not as a paycheck, not even as a lover, but as someone who finally, quietly, truly chose to stay.